Hello everyone, I am Sentinel, and today I'll be showing you how I make my islands for Pirates CSG. First, I get my foam, which is 1-inch foamular insulation foam. Then I have a pen for marking, a steel ruler, an X-Acto knife, and some kind of craft saw. Finally, we have a piece of foam board for the base of the island. First thing I'll do is mark out on the foam board the rough size of the island. In this case, a rather small one. I'm not too happy with that one, so over to the back side. That one's much better. Next, I'll cut out the base part with my knife. I'll try to follow along the line, but the line is more of a guide than a rule. There we are, all done. Small rip on the leftover board, it just means I'll have to make that a beach at some point. I'll most likely use the cutout to make a cove for another island sometime later. Now I'll trim off the excess board to get the more natural round shape. There we have the base of our island, kind of oblong in shape. Next, I'll carve the beach part into the base. I'll do this by cutting into the board at an angle. As you can see, there's now a slanted beach on the base. This part is a little steep, so I'll trim it down a little. There, not as steep and looks a little better. Now that the base of the island has been established, we bring over our piece of foam. There's quite a bit here, so we'll not be using all of it, just a small corner piece here. Now that we have the rough outline of the island, it's time to start cutting. Using my saw tool to first cut out the small square where I've drawn the outline of the island. We put aside the excess foam. I'll make an island or two out of it later, and sweep our workplace clean. Now we trim off the excess foam and bring our little island out of the foam, again using the saw tool since the foam at this point is still just too thick to use my knife. Again, the line I've drawn is more of a guide, and I'll be trimming the foam down so that it will fit onto the flat part of the base. Now we have the beginning of our island. For the trimming part, I'll start with the saw tool, but I'll switch to my knife soon, since the saw does not like to cut curves or rounded shapes. More trimming needs to be done to match the foam up to the base. Before I go any further, I'll draw one more guideline on the foam. This one I'll try to follow closely. Since there is more foam than I expected to be cut, I'll use the saw tool one more time. Now that those are out of the way, it's time for the knife. The foam is just thicker than the length of my knife blade, so I can only cut about halfway down and then come at it from the other side. I've cut along the inside of the line to guarantee that the foam will fit onto the base. Sometimes when I've cut most of the way through, I use a little elbow grease to break off the pieces of the foam. This side of the island I think will be good for some cliffs. I checked the foam into the base, only a little more needs to be trimmed off. This side of the island is a bit straighter than I would have intended, but there's not much I can do at this point to fix that. Opposite the cliffs, I'll carve out a sloping hill. To carve the hill, I'll trim the foam away at an angle, like I did for the base to make the beach. I need to be careful not to cut too much away, or I won't be able to handle the island well. The hill is carved and looks good, if a little steep. I don't think I can make the slope gentler without risking the integrity of the island's foam. I check the foam to the base. It fits nicely. I trim just a little more off of the hill, to make it look smoother. I also trim off a small piece near the top to make a more natural looking curve, and to get rid of the remaining guide marking. Now it's time to make the cliffs. Using my pen, I mark out the rough boundaries of the cliffs. I make the cliffs by hacking and dragging across the foam with the steel ruler. Sweeping aside the mess, I use my thumb and fingers to scrape off any foam that is still clinging to the island. Looking at the base again, there's a bit that seems too steep, so I trim off some of it with the knife. I also find some guideline marks I missed earlier and trim those off now as well. The foam still fits nicely after the additional trimming of the base. Regrettably, this island is still too small to fit a Pirates CSG fort on top of it, since the plateau part is too small. However, it is still a decently sized island. I trimmed just a little bit more off of the island. Now it's time to attach the foam to the base. There are a few ways you can do this. I've used super glue in the past, but today I'm using a hot glue gun. I use a small amount of glue on one end of the island and another small amount on the other end. Applying some pressure, I anchor the foam to the base. And there we are, we have our rough island. The next steps are to paint and add details to the island, which I'll do in another video. If you want to see more, make sure you're subscribed. If you like what you saw, hit that like button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.